Buzz.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the second season of Second Sons. This is, I believe, episode 7. As always, I am Roy Rogers, formerly of the New York City Meta, currently at my apartment Meta, which has Ghost Adventures on in the background, because that's what my lady friend is watching while I do this. With me today is our full actual cast of our full cast and crew. With our tech guy Buzz currently, as you all now know, trying to solve Chris's mic issue. So we'll start with Aaron, who won't be able to say anything. And then we'll move on to the person with the biggest mic problem besides me today, which is Chris Schoenthal, 2016 North American champion. How are you doing, Chris?
Hanging in there.
And then also joining me is Sydney. How are you doing, Sid?
Hey, wait a second. I'm noticing something.
Wait, what?
Wait. Hey, Sid, what's that on your face?
Hey, we have a timeline. You're spoiling it. What are you doing? You just want to do this first?
No.
The
About
beard.
beard?
It means
The
the
beard.
beard.
Right. We talked about this last week. The beard will be gone in our pre-Worlds episode.
Which
I
is our
thought
next
this was our pre-world. Oh,
No,
okay.
we-
I thought
No,
this
we got
was-
one more. It's the next one.
Okay.
Yes. The bet will be settled in our next episode. There you go. The beard will be gone then. So yeah, besides dreading that awful day, I'm doing fine. Like living in the now, just enjoying every day with my beard while I can, and just enjoying those good times. That's all.
And last, but in the context of the fact that he didn't show up for the last episode, least, is our wayward, previously fired, newest co-host, Sandy Barnabas. How you doing, Sandy?
I'm pretty good. I actually would like to dispute that because unlike some other members of this podcast, I actually play in tournaments, which is why I missed the last episode.
There was a tournament on at 10 p.m. Eastern? That's fucking weird.
Yeah, time zones,
Wednesday?
man. Kill you.
Wednesday?
We just we're gonna hire and fire Sandy every epissoday just to avoid tenureship kind of complications.
That's true.
He's a temp. He's our temp host.
He's a contract employee. He's an
definitely a contract.
He's an
employee.
adjunct host, and he works at will.
Very
All
few
Unlike
benefits.
Aaron, who has tenure,
This was my stupid
That's what it was.
idea.
I know it was. So, all right. So we have actually a lot to talk about tonight. So I think we should probably get going because we have a lot to talk about. I don't have infinite time. The thing that we're going to start off with is we're going to start with a softball because there were two sort of big announcements about Worlds recently, and sort of the easiest and probably the least controversial is how terrible the prize support that's been announced so far is. You can take a look, and maybe somebody will be kind and
FFG website and found these things. It's still not clear to me whether the Netrunner community knows about the Decklist thing.
Well, okay, that's true.
Fantastic.
So, I mean, that's of course, Chris propping his fellow member of the North American Champion Club there, friend of the show, Alex Black. So,
That's right.
How is he a friend of the show?
because I don't know, I like Alex. He's a nice guy, so he's a friend of the show.
Stealing God Save America's bullshit.
I like Alex too.
Dislike
Met
Alex.
Alex,
I
so-
like him fine. He's not a friend of the show.
Whatever. Oh my God, you're getting us bogged down in useless detail. All right,
That
so
never happens.
Ever.
never ever happens. Okay, threw me off. Anyway, World's prize support terrible. So this year, instead of getting a T-shirt, you get a crappy beanie that'll make you look like a white supremacist. All right. Second,
I swear to God,
Second.
the Brotherhood got them to do that.
Oh,
It's like,
second.
Hey, it could be Booker.
second,
They look pretty Antifa to me. I don't know.
a playmat that is so nondescript to the point of like you might as well just not play on a playmat. All right.
So it's a
Third.
Sanders style playmat.
Yeah,
Third.
it's my play, Matt.
Third, totally not belittling the fact that the world is the tournament. You now get ticket prizes like you're at an arcade that you can then
Wait,
trade in for previous swag.
Is that a serious thing?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
I'm gonna
I
crush it at
hate that. I
Speedball,
hate
too.
it so much. Like I know it's not actually something to hate, but I really hate it. Like,
no, it's something to hate.
It's
it
so
feels
annoying.
like-
dumb.
It
It
gets
feels
under my
like a
skin.
ploy to unload old inventory. That's all it is.
I
It's like,
really
we're
hope
gonna
they're
give you
selling
these
Formula
tickets,
One ads.
but this is
How
junk.
is it a ploy, though? How is it a ploy? It's not like they're making us pay for the tickets.
Well,
No, but if it's in the
$70.
place of actual good price support, it is. Like we don't know what else is coming besides the wall, the beanie and the screensaver playmat. So like, if we don't know, right? Maybe there's going to be a mountain of amazing prizes. But if it's just the wall and what they've shown us, like, it's pretty bad, I think.
Sure, if you're saying that there's not any further prizing beyond what they've shown us, I will agree with you that it's bad. But I can't imagine that there are no game-specific prizes.
I mean, there are. They've said that.
I mean, I can imagine it.
No, there will be. There's going to be a card.
Sandy,
right?
what were you going to say? What was your point about the wall?
Go ahead, Sandy.
I mean, do we know, like we're paying $70 to compete? It's not like it's free. Like we're the value of the ticket. Like, are we at Dave and Buster's? Like, what's we doing?
And they're giving us last year's prizes at Dave and Buster's. They're not even busting out new stuff.
That's awesome if you don't have them.
The most
This
is like when NBC tried to do the new. It's new to you for reruns. It's just like it's just a repackaging of old stuff.
Only if I can buy for 100 tickets Joe Mirando's world champion mat will I at all think that this is worthwhile.
Guys,
all right.
Why are we?
Wait, is this the
Go
most
ahead,
expensive tournament ever?
No.
No, it's cheap. No, unless you're doing
Is it the most
games.
expensive Thrones tournament ever?
Yeah, I think
Yeah, single Thrones tournament. I'm pretty sure
No,
it
it's
is.
not any more than Worlds last year. It's less than Worlds last year if it's only 70. Last year was 75.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
but it's more expensive this year, I think, to do multiple games though. Right.
Right. There's no
You don't get the
multi-game discount. That part is true. Which is if I played multiple games, I would certainly be annoyed by that. I understand that.
It was the
But
reason
I don't
why.
understand why we're pillorying them for putting out stuff that could just be sitting in their warehouse and they're not giving us.
All right.
give it to us for free. Like, hand it out. Don't make it part of the prize.
They are handing it out.
I mean, go ahead.
Sandy, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like, because I'm the one who really hates this. Like, just give it out as bounties. Like, give out the individual prizes as bounties. Like, I just hate the idea of getting these tickets and then handing the tickets in. It feels like, as Sandy said, Dave and Buster's or some sort of like nightmarish adult playground, like arcade.
Maybe I'm the idiot, but I fucking love Dave and Buster's.
Wait,
so.
Triggers all of my like anxieties, along with people.
There's a way to do this. I'm pretty sure that they're not doing. Are they doing top of each house at Worlds?
We don't know.
Do they usually? Because I know they didn't
I think
used
they
to.
have in the past, right?
They did.
But I don't remember last year them doing that. But maybe I'm.
That if they didn't do it last year, then they only.
You should have been top of
they
house.
didn't do it at the two Worlds
of last year.
Weren't
Weren't you the highest placing bear?
Yeah, you would have been.
Maybe. I don't.
Yeah,
There were no other. Was there any other bear in the cut?
So
yeah, but I don't remember. I was 13th, I think. So if there was, they were probably ahead of me. But I honestly don't remember. I definitely didn't get anything for top Barra.
So top of house or top 3 of house if they get enough people, or like the bubble people, the extra people that don't make it, and then you like, hey, do a raffle like every other Thrones tournament I've ever been to. Like, do something that's like fits in with how Thrones works. Don't make it Dave and Buster's because that's dumb. Like, Dave and Buster's is fun, but
it worries me that 3 weeks away we don't know anything else, right? I mean, we're all assuming there's gonna be other stuff, like top 32, top 16, top 8, all that good stuff. But we haven't seen any of it, and it kind of just makes me a little nervous. I'm not
sure how that's relevant though. They've already required you to buy your ticket. You've probably already bought your flight by now.
Oh,
it's not going to change anything if they have it or don't have it.
If they don't have any other prizes, it'll change my enjoyment of the tournament.
Sure. Yes, I agree that if the answer is literally nothing, again, which I don't believe, then it'll be shittier than it has been previously.
I think that from experience, I don't think I'm an overly negative person, but like historically, FFG run tournaments have never been as good as I've expected. They've always disappointed. So, like, the fact that we have such low expectations for Worlds going in, like, is not a great sign.
Right. I just don't see any need to lower them further. Like, I don't think it's any worse than it's been. And I think these things are bonuses, albeit small bonuses, that I have no problem with.
I think the playmat is almost objectively worse than the deck boxes that we've got in the past.
Sure, I don't disagree.
Wow. I thought the art at Gen Con was great, though.
Although I know you actually actively hate the playmat, and I don't. I'll say that.
Why is the playmat worse than the boxes, guys?
Because the boxes, you at
Utility.
least, they were usable, more usable than a playmat with no art on it. Like it's literally got no art on it. Like, I'm not sure. It's just a logo, right?
So,
Just a logo.
here's the thing about the playmat for me. I actually like the way it looks. I know that's crazy. It's fine, whatever. But my issue with the playmat is, if I'm going to use a branded playmat, I want it to be for something that I unequivocally support. I've used playmats for stores that have been owned by friends of mine before. I had one that was on camera at Gen Con 3 years ago, I think. And my buddy that owned the store was really happy with it. But there was an issue with that store, and it kind of turned me off to that store, and I don't use that playmat anymore. And so if I were to want to use an FFG playmat, I would have to unequivocally support the organization, and that's not necessarily the case. So that's my biggest issue with the playmat is I don't hate the art, and if I was a full supporter and completely on board with all of FFG's decisions, I would probably use it, but that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
And by not necessarily the case, he means not at all the case. All right, let's move on to the format of the actual tournament.
Yeah, I think that's what I was about to do. So the other big announcement, which Chris, I think it was Chris, alluded to earlier, which is that top 16, the deck lists will be shared. Now, they won't be shared in the way I believe they are in Magic tournaments, which is that as soon as the top 16 is finalized or top 8 is finalized, that everyone gets the deck lists. And I think
they still can't reference them in games, though.
Game, right. They still can't reference them in games, but say if there's a break, like an hour break between the end of rounds and the cut, you have an hour to look over the list, right?
Yes.
That's not the case in FFG games. You only have...
And more specifically, I will also add, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe it at least used to be the case, that the deck lists were given immediately after the top 16 announcement, which in Magic it's top 8, not top 16, but then the top 8 is generally played the next day. So you have all night to test against your next matchup.
Yeah. That's not the case
for card matchup.
That's not the case for Thrones. You will only get access to the deck list immediately before the game you begin. Probably you'll get about 5 minutes to look over the deck list, I would think would probably be reasonable.
Doesn't it say 3?
Does it say 3?
It doesn't say a time frame.
Yeah, the 5 minutes was just a supposition, but it seems reasonable to me. Like, they actually give you like that enough time to actually like digest the list. This has proven, I believe, to be one of the most controversial things to come down in the community recently, and has, I think, exposed some pretty long-standing divisions about what's the best way to play Thrones that have been sort of covered up by the more recent culture wars drama that has sort of dominated our social media presence and online forums. So it's nice to be arguing about something that actually has to do with the game and how it's played. So I'm going to throw this out to Chris, because he, I believe, among us is the strongest supporter of this change. So, Chris, why do you think that this is good for Thrones on a competitive level?
Yeah, I just think that basically what they are preventing with this, and I will say this is good, not necessarily the best. I don't want to say this is the be-all, end-all solution by any means, but the fact that FFG is finally acknowledging this is a good start. Basically, when you go into a Thrones tournament, especially in a large group, you have a natural advantage. So when we go to a tournament as a team or as a group from the same meta, you're naturally going to chat with your friends about what decks you've played against, who's playing what, especially other groups, and then sometimes it gets into specifics. Sometimes it's is he running this plot? What is this archetype playing in terms of an event suite right now, things like that.
And sometimes Corey plots out your whole game for you.
Yes, and then sometimes certain groups will write down the deck lists of opponents. But generally speaking, then you go to somebody who's come to the tournament by themselves. They don't have that advantage. They don't have as wide a variety of friends or fellow opponents, I guess, to put it another way, to draw from in terms of people who they might have played against. So they basically only have information on their direct opponents. And this basically levels the playing field in terms of scouting and imperfect information between players.
Can I add one thing to that, Chris?
Please do.
I think that this actually is an extremely consistent view for you specifically. I know you dislike Melee because of that aspect. And I think or maybe not that aspect, but like it brings external factors into the game and it affects your performance based on factors outside of the game you're playing, which is also one of my big problems with it. Like, I don't think anyone would argue that the informational advantage is an advantage, that knowing what your opponents have is an advantage. And I think the asymmetric nature of that informational advantage leads to certain groups, like essentially groups
Just
of people.
fucking say DC.
Well, it's not just DC, Aaron. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
It's not just
but
DC.
it's who we're talking about. Like,
Well,
No, it's not. Like, I know in your little isolated world where you go no more than 30 miles for any tournament, it might just be DC. But like, there are groups around the world that will play together and play as a group. I know London has one. I know Madrid has one. I know Southern Spain has one.
I thought Europeans frowned upon that.
No, they test against each other. They know what each other are playing. They will talk in between games. I mean, like there's people will talk in between games. It's a way to de-stress, and they'll talk to their friends. And if you're from like if you don't know anybody there, then you're going to be at a disadvantage because you're not talking to anyone in between games. Like, no matter how little or how much you try to avoid that, like it happens at every tournament. There's like groups of people that are clustered together. Like, I won, I lost, I did this, I saw this, I got screwed by this, I got really lucky with this, and like that's part of the game. And I mean, in Swiss, if the field is large enough, that like you get some chance of facing somebody else that your friends have played, and that's fine. But in the cut, it's like there's a much higher chance you're going to run into somebody that you have played, that your friends have played, and they don't have that advantage. And I think like yes, it lowers the baseline of skill. Like if I'm like some super mind reader poker player and I know what plot you're gonna flip, or like I know I can bluff what plot I'm gonna flip or cards I'm gonna play, that's fine. Like we can take away that advantage if it means that we don't give an advantage to external factors.
So, Sid.
I don't fall vehemently on either side of this, but I'll try and argue at least one point from the other side. I do think that if you're planning on making the cut, which I assume most people are, right? If you're not just entering the lists for funsies, if you're like, I want to make the cut, and you honestly think there's a very good chance that your deck list is going to be shared with your opponent, there are certain things you probably can't do, right? Like, and getting back to the idea of how much kind of scouting there is, just the simple question of meeting up with one of your meta mates who played somebody who you're going to play, and you say, hey, what reset are they playing, right? That's a really common type of question, right? What reset are they playing? But that's scouting, like that's important information. And there's big ranges. I mean, there's people who huddle up every single round and like just break down decks, right? Because they've got the target decks that they're looking to kind of figure out. But it's also much more casual. Like I think I agree with Sandy's take, if I read it correctly, that even in Europe, the quote unquote kind of moral bastion of Thrones, they still talk about what's being played, right? In an effort to at least suss out some information about how to go about their next few rounds, right? And I think that is kind of okay. Like I'm all right with that. That's fine. I don't think that's a big problem. It's the big huddle ups and like anything written down or like hard data that makes me uncomfortable, and it's always made me a little bit uncomfortable. That's what I'm talking about
as the concern. I feel like this isn't meant for the people who are just having casual conversations. This is an explicit break up the big groups that are actively planning move.
Well, yeah, and I'm not sure it's the right step for that. Like, I don't like what this does take away. Like, as someone who is kind of a Jamie player that likes to flirt with my Shagga side, oh yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, me? How could it be? Like, I am a little bit can you can't even really take a deck probably that doesn't run a reset, right? Can you even go into a tournament with that? You can definitely make the cut, but as soon as someone goes, oh, there's no reset, it's just flood time. I mean, they'll see the whole rest of your deck too and know, okay, can I overpower this deck? It's not just, do you not run a reset? Because that could still be risky. What if they have Varus or something else? But when you see everything, I'll immediately know, I can just run over this deck. And that's what I'll do. I'll just spill and spill and spill. And I don't like that side effect. And it's not a side effect I think you can avoid with this solution. It makes me uncomfortable. I'm not saying this is the wrong solution, and I definitely don't have a better one. But this solution does come with some uncomfortable caveats for me.
So I think there's two issues here, and one I want to pick something sort of Sid was saying up at the end. Then I want to go back to the scouting question. So I think though that's not necessarily true. I think you can run a deck that doesn't run a reset, and people know your pot deck. Because just look at Seth and Aaron's deck from U.S. Nationals. Everyone in the cut knew that they weren't running Valor, they weren't running Wildfire, but their deck was built in a way that they didn't care if their opponent knew that. Right? Their deck was like, we have this game plan, we're gonna do it. And we'll play into our opponent's Valor or we won't, right? And that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't really like. If your deck loses, if your opponent knows that you don't have a Valor, then that does change your deck. But that doesn't mean that you can't play decks that don't have a reset. You just can't play decks that can't survive opponent who sets just Tywin up and is like, you don't have Marched? Eat it. I have Tywin. It changes that. But I'll let you respond, Aaron, because I really do want to talk about scouting. As everyone knows, I'm very pro scouting. So
I think this is the actual point. Like it's the DC competitively hollow with England fight all over again, right? Because like DC, as much as they scout, would probably approve of this and just be like, yeah, just give the information. Who fucking cares? We're gonna run the most efficient cards, no answers specifically because who fucking cares? Just play the best cards. Where if you're running like bantery shit, you're like, well, I just want to surprise you with this really cool combo now, and that's what's going to win me the game. And like that bantery shit is what really takes a hit. And given where this game is competitively, where it's competitive, but it's not the most competitive game, I'm not sure we really want that. I would probably, given what this game actually is and how it works, prefer that extra bit of bantery bullshit. I think it makes it more fun if FFG is going to continue to be mediocre in other ways.
The banter / jank / whatever, like it's carved out a nice little niche in Thrones, right? It doesn't win
all the
tournament after tournament after tournament, but once in a while it's just like, whoa, that's kind of cool. Like it adds this little flavor, and I don't know if this change makes us lose that. I don't know.
Not all of us have fancy Patagonia sponsorships based on our jank, so
yeah.
So go ahead, Roy. But I have a primary source here.
Right, go ahead.
Roy, you said primary source, and Roy got real excited.
I got a heart.
Oh my God.
I had a conversation specifically about this. I don't know if you guys remember the one episode of my podcast.
No.
Vaguely.
But Seth was talking to Chris Vack, who ended up winning that tournament, about what type of decks Chris, he was like, Chris, you always make the cut, but you haven't won anything recently. Like, what's going on there? And Chris was like, I just, whatever. And Seth's advice to him was basically, don't play, assume your opponent has perfect information. If your deck can't win when your opponent has perfect information, then you'll make the cut because no one will know what you're playing, but then you'll constantly lose.
Exactly.
And Chris ended up winning that tournament. Because he was like, I'm just I'm not going to try any fancy tricks. I'm just going to play good cards and not be super, janky, and he ended up winning. Right. And it's like, I think he actually said in my interview with him afterwards that was very consciously what he set out to do. It was he's not going to play stupid shit. He's not going to try and do tricky things and to surprise people. He's just going to play a solid game.
So what you're saying is England is competitively hollow. Got it.
Well, I'm saying that it depends on how you define player skill. And Roy, you can talk about scouting, but then we can come back to player skill.
Yeah, well, because that's going to bring us
crazy, right?
Larger thing, but I think scouting, because I think there's two kinds of scouting, right? There's there's three kinds. There's no scouting, but there's the soft scouting that Sid seems to say is okay, which I guess is kind of what SoCal does, if they could be accused of scouting at all, which is you talk to your friends, go, oh, I had this really good matchup, they didn't have Valor,
so you. They hardcore scout.
No, I'm being generous here. Okay,
I know it's talking to.
I know it's a touchy subject with the SoCal guys, so I'm being generous here. All right.
We don't all agree with each other.
Yeah, there's definitely a split even within SoCal on this subject.
Then there's the hard scouting, which is the Corey level scouting.
Why don't you use us as an example? So
we're us, but we're not quite Corey level because we don't sit and write things down. Yeah, write things down and memorize people's decks, but it's where you are and you assign people to actively watch games where it's like, oh, Ryan Jones is playing. Hey, Sam, when you finish your game, go take a look at what Ryan's doing. You know,
DC will like stand behind other people and like look at their hands and like, like I saw it over and over and over, just like everyone else did.
It happens all the time.
It was an open secret, right? Yeah,
right. It's not barely. It's an open thing that happens that is kind of a secret. Like
I mean, they openly clued in Melee, so like that's an improvement.
But if it's like what do you think Seth and Corey and Aaron and Patrick are all talking about, like in the corner, right? You know, after the round, it's not the Nats or the Redskins or whatever. It's what's going on around. Then there's the like New York. I'll talk about the New York City experience with scouting or talking this, which is we come together and we talk about like how did the round go? What was the matchups that you saw? How's the meta building? Like, what are the plots that you've seen? Did you play SoCal? What is SoCal playing? Did you see DC? What is DC playing? What kind of plots did they have? And then we talk about, and then someone could be like, if I had a bad match, if I had a loss in particular, I might turn to Dan or Aaron or John and be like, what should I do if I run into boom? And if I know I'm playing Martell next round, I could be like, hey, I'm playing Martell next round. What's a good strategy? It's like, well, we know most of the Martell decks here aren't running blah. You don't have to play around that. Play around this that most Martell decks are. Like we talk in more generally, but about these things, like, and we share sort of our experiences with each other. Like that's what we generally do at these big tournaments, like Gen Con, when we go as a team. And I enjoy that.
That hasn't changed in Swiss, right?
No, it hasn't changed in Swiss. And what this leads to is the soft scouting, though, leads to most people who care about what goes on in the top 16 know what people are playing. And that doesn't necessarily just mean they were scouting, but they could go to the after party and you know that people are at the Second Sons after party and people are going to be like, oh man, did you see Fred Burns' all Rangers deck that was just tearing up? I can't believe he broke into day 2. Oh my God. And then somebody who's at the party, they're like, oh, I am playing Fred in my first round on the second day. Did that person just scout? Is that unfair asymmetrical advantage? Like, I think that the freak out that people have about scouting is because of the somewhat extreme methods that DC and other groups sometimes do. But in general, scouting is also a skill. It takes a lot of work to properly scout. I've lost games because members of my team have told me wrong information, and I've
name names.
Name. All right. And then secondly, I've also watched Keith of the Brotherhood not give information to his teammate and me beat his teammate because he didn't know I was running naval superiority, even though I beat Keith in the Swiss. Like there's bad examples of scouting where teams miscommunicate and it screws up and all that kind of stuff. It's a skill like any other. Now, if it's one you want to get out of the game, that's fine. But I think it's not just this easy mode win that, oh, Corey is this evil genius. Like he and Seth and all of them put a lot of work into methods to do this. And if they put that work in, like they legitimately are putting the time and effort into it, I don't mind them being rewarded for that. That's just me.
I made a list because we're just going to go in circles now, right? I made a list of things that really, really changed with this in the cut.
There we go.
You want to talk about those cards quickly? And we can just pass on anything that we feel is too obvious. Because, like, the first 3 things are really obvious. Resets we discussed. Naval is now just dead, right?
Strongly.
So, interestingly, Greg
Not
Atkinson doesn't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so there.
Greg? When has Greg chimed in about anything recently?
Will posted it in the Valor Midwestist group.
And I'm in that.
Coming back? Probably not.
I don't think so. But he actually he mentioned very strongly that he doesn't think that it affects naval particularly. He said that it still requires the 1 in 7, like unless it's your last plot and their plots as well. So like, okay, well, I know he's got this kingdom to hit and this kingdom to hit. I know he's probably not going to play this one here. He's not going to play his reset here. So, there's some back and forth mind games that way.
Yeah,
so it changes the way you play it, but whether or not it actually eliminates it from competition, I don't know.
So I feel like
kind of bully your opponent now, like
the gamble. Yeah. Just the gamble is really awkward.
I mean, I feel like Late Summer Feast is what killed naval more than anything else.
Yeah, fair enough.
Why did Late Summer Feast? It's a kingdom.
Is it? Is it also a kingdom?
Yes.
Summer Harvest.
Yeah. Summer Harvest.
Summer Harvest.
Draw with.
Summer Harvest and the 6/1/1.
Time of plenty.
Time of Plenty. That's the one that really kind of killed it.
Sure.
Time of Plenty is just the safest open in the game, right? Yeah. All right. So Marched now just has to be more popular, no? as
Yeah.
long as big
Sure.
guys are in
It
the
has
meta.
to.
Like it's
It
really
has
hard
to.
to just not run
It makes-
March.
Yep,
Uh,
that's true.
I'm not really sure what this does to this, but it definitely affects confiscation. I'm not sure if it makes it more or less likely, but I know that if I know my opponent has confiscation or doesn't have confiscation, I'm playing attachments, it changes my game big time.
You do. You play differently, definitely.
It definitely makes Night's Watch players' lives a lot easier because not like it's like
Are they running
does
that
my
first
opponent have
round?
confiscation? Okay, I'm just gonna play my normal Night's Watch game. Do they not have confiscation or weapons at the door? I'm just gonna play. Oh, this is a
Yeah.
powerful attachment. Goes on your guy. Oh, this is a powerful attachment. Goes on your guy. No slow playing your attachments and trying to piece them out. It's like
Right.
Craven goes on this. Craven for you. Craven for you.
I mean,
Well-
there's a certain little mini game where you're trying to draw out the confiscation so you can hit him with a better attachment. Like that's
Mhm.
that's a
Right.
thing you do. And if you lose a confiscation, like that does go away. Like these small little things, like I don't know how much do these things build up. We're gonna find out, obviously.
Yeah.
Like I'm not ready to cry. Like this is the end of secret play or interesting play, but I'm
It doesn't
concerned.
help it.
I'm
The riddle gets better. Like
Uh,
significantly better.
Why?
Because you
I
know
mean, I'm not
exactly
convinced
what
it
they
does,
have.
but-
You know how many things you can hit. You know your odds of hitting with it when.
I guess
Like-
knowing your, but I mean, if
Like,
the odds
if
You know,
suck-
you know if you're gonna get to screw a Summer Harvest player.
Or get a counting. Yeah.
I mean,
Right. Well,
knowing
you're-
that you have Varys's riddle in,
and they shouldn't
in
open
your-
with it, but like then you're playing stupid little bullshit mind games, which
Mhm.
ultimately, to me, usually come down to luck, right? Like if you don't know the player, you're just like, "Rrr, whatever. I guess I'm gonna
Well,
try
they know
this.
I've got it. Do they think I'm the kind of person to
Yeah.
bluff it or play it straight?
You're
Yeah.
playing. You're playing Battle of Wits at that point, right?
Russian roulette.
No, Battle of Wits. It's Princess
And
Bride.
is
It's
that
just
a
like,
better version of the plot game? I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
no, I think it's a less good version of the plot game, but
I
like I feel like it was
suspect-
happening to an
maybe.
extent already, but like when there was a lack of information on both sides, it was different. I think Riddle's just way better. Like
Well,
even if
that's-
you
but
don't,
Wama argues otherwise because he basically says it's more difficult to pin specific cards like resets, right? Like he was specifically arguing about a double Varys deck that doesn't run a reset, a double Varys's riddle that doesn't run resets.
That's
Uh,
spicy.
that's apparently what Wama was testing, and which
yeah, I would-
is the most Wama idea in the world, right? That you
Sure.
don't run Valor, but you try to cut your opponent's Valor.
No,
Right,
no,
but-
I mean,
yes, competitively hollow. He won
no,
4
I would
regionals. We
do
got that.
Like, I would do that in my card deck 100% of the time.
You would do that in a like if you're trying to win worlds. Like that's probably not a good strategy.
No, I'd probably do
It's just-
double counting.
Probably not.
But- Yeah, no, I
double
think,
marched.
Yeah, I love double march.
Yeah,
I
me
do
too.
think that there's a plot you haven't mentioned. I'm wondering if it's. Do you have any more plots on your list?
One more, and then I'm moving on. Winter Festival, I think, is a big change
Really?
Uh,
Why
yeah.
Winter Festival?
because you know how many summer plots they have. Like Winter Festival, if you can actually avoid the summer plot, it was really, really strong. It's just really hard to time.
I was going to say political disaster. If I know somebody's running
big
political
one.
disaster, like
Oh,
my
yeah.
gameplay totally changes.
Mhm.
I put
mean,
that in draw deck. I
aren't
just
you- I mean,
said
again, it's a-
location
Yeah,
control, it's
if you're not running like dupes of locations, I get how that changes a lot.
It
of
changes
what
Night's
you're-
Watch
what you're
players
doing.
again.
Yeah. I mean, I'm running dupes of locations, but I want to dupe. I'm just talking about my target deck. Like, I'll wait till I have a duped Astapor than before I put the 4 gold on it.
Right.
But
Yeah.
but I don't think these are. Well, let's continue with your list. But I have a statement after that.
Okay. I think Hand Judgment is ridiculously huge.
Yeah.
Like I think Hand Judgment might be
Yeah.
like beyond resets might be the biggest change in the game. Like if you know your opponent has Hand Judgment or not, it changes a lot. Especially if you're running it.
Mm-hmm.
Your risk reward. And this is
Well,
why
you
I
just
had
you can't bluff it, right? You just can't bluff it, which isn't a huge element of the game, but it's a little thing. You know, it's a little thing that I've considered. Like if I'm playing a deck that I think normally would maybe run Hand's Judgment, and they've got that gold, and I've got that 1
Yeah.
gold event, I'm like, if this gets canceled, like, will this screw me? Like,
Yeah,
I have
is
to
this
kind
the
of-
time to
and if
try
so, like,
this or
then
should I
maybe
wait?
don't do that play, right? But if they didn't have Hand's Judgment, it's just me beating myself, right? I should have just done it.
But here's the thing.
Where it affects me
Whoa,
is
can we
the
keep
order.
this a little PG, Sid? Jeez, beating
Where it
yourself.
affects me is the order of events I play. I will very often, if I assume they have a hand judgment, play a less impactful event if possible sooner
Yeah.
to try and
Your
draw it out.
sacrificial
And, like,
event, right?
Yeah, like, and
Yeah, like-
sometimes it's like a tier. Sometimes it's a really good event because I need the last of the giants, right? But like, if I know they're not running it, I'm just like, woo! All the
Yeah.
events whenever I think it's good.
I think it's more of a bit of a binary thing because like hands judgment is one of those things like you can feel like how your opponent's acting, but it's like it's harder to bluff hands judgment I think than some other events because like they either have it or they don't. Like as long as
I
they
don't think
have
so.
like
That's
one
true.
go,
What
I
about
think so.
I keep
Like,
thinking of tiers, like, because like if I know I have a hands judgment, I'm not usually terribly afraid of leaving myself open to tiers. Where
That's
if
true.
I know I can defend it otherwise, like I might just be like, you know what, I know that I should probably make sure I keep enough up to defend this intrigue challenge
Yeah.
because like otherwise, bye bye Randall. So
Like,
like it changes the way I play the whole round.
True enough.
But to the
I just-
sword is big too, because it's like
But
that
to the
that
sword.
5 strength
Yeah, so I wanna-
threshold is the difference maker. It's like,
And the
do
two
I
gold.
need to be cautious or can I just chud block this? Because if I can just chud it, it's going to give me a much better position in that challenge phase because I know that's all I have to do. But if
We
I have
do
to
not sow.
commit a little bit,
Yeah,
We do
but
not
yeah,
sow.
so is a big one.
right? Just let those unopposed through. They're not going to hurt me with it. Like,
Yeah. These
I
are all
know.
big things. And just knowing if they have hands judgment, not knowing whether they have it, that's a different game, right? But you know if they're running it, you're playing differently. You just play the whole game differently.
and how many copies? Like, even if it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, there's their one. Cool. All systems
They-
go.
Yeah.
Like,
So,
This rule's gonna be awesome once we get Darkwing's Dark Words.
Try memorizing all of them, motherfucker.
So basically what we're saying here is when you get your deck list, if you're in the top 16, you look at the plots and then you look at the event package, and that's generally what you need to see in those 5 minutes, right?
with certain exceptions. If you see Night's Watch, you're figuring out which type of Night's Watch they're playing pretty much fucking immediately. That's a huge change because you don't beat
Sure.
builders the same way you beat Reigns, and you
Right,
sure don't
but-
beat either of those the same way you beat Steel all your dudes.
But I think,
Like
I
you
think
open different, you
that
play
specific
different.
I
knowledge
mean,
is
are you putting a
anyone
Steel
who's in-
in the top 16 at Worlds, Glazer?
is-
I could see it.
anyone. But here's the thing: like, I don't think this is about evening knowledge of like deck art type. Like, most people who make the top 16 are from your house and agenda, going to generally know what you're doing, right? Night's Watch Wolf is generally an attrition deck.
Sure.
Kings of Summer is a night. You want to see how the deck is specifically teched,
So-
right? What's their plots? What's their events? Because built. But I could be wrong. Like again, I'm not
I don't
nearly as
think
good
that's-
as the
I don't
people.
think
I
that's
have a counterexample to this
necessarily
from
true.
the bottom. Top 16, top 32, whatever. It ended up really high place, but with the Lanny Crossing deck, very few people saw that shit coming.
I mean, yeah, with Lanny, are they jumper Lanny or are they not jumper Lanny, right?
Yeah.
or are they Tyrion's chain heads on spikes, Lanny?
I mean, whatever, right?
Right.
So what also matters in the deck archetype area is rush cards.
Oh
Like-
yeah,
Like
absolutely.
which flavor of rush are they playing? Do I have to worry if they're attacking and have ladies out? Am I scared of night bullshit? Am
That's
I
an
scared
event. Again, that's an event package thing that you.
Sort of. Sometimes.
I mean, if
like,
they're running all men are
character base will
fools, that
help
tells
too.
you a
Yeah.
lot about.
Yeah.
You don't need to look at the character base. If
And,
they're running all men are fools, that tells you.
Hey, there's one character that's awfully important to look for.
Is it Varys?
Yeah, of course it's Varys.
But of course, that's true.
Like
We
the
already said look at the plots though.
Yeah, fair. The cheeky Varys is just Blackwater's important too, right?
yeah.
Are
It
they
doesn't-
running?
I don't
Save
think-
your dupes. Do you toss them?
Yeah,
but
how
I
often
don't-
do you use them? Do you try and save them for a little while, hold them in hand, use them as intrigue fodder? Try and draw
Especially
out
if
Blackwater,
you're
'cause they
running
keep
Valor
people-
and they're running Blackwater, you have to play
Yeah.
that game very carefully.
So like this is what transitioning a little
It
bit.
makes it more interesting.
This
I think it makes
conversation
it less.
means exactly backs up my point that I don't think this diminishes player skill. Like I don't think this diminishes the
Yeah.
role of skill. I think it changes the type of player that is successful though. From the type of player who can like front having, I've got the hands judgment or I've got the nightmares or I've got the whatever, like you better save your resources versus like you don't have it. How am I going to use whatever? Like how am I going to do the best with what I have? Like given that my opponent knows this stuff. And
It becomes a pure efficiency game.
yeah, exactly. And this is why I think
It's not what I like.
Well, hold on a second. Because I do want to transition, because Sandy's doing a really good job about decision making. But I do want to say what this does is it demands that janky or combo decks or semi-combo decks become Hyper Viper and not Wama style decks. Which is it has to be a combo deck that demands consistency. It demands a game plan, demands efficiency, and so it has to have a game plan that it can
Has to be
execute
good.
even. has to be good. Well, no, Wama has, like Sun Garden's a good deck. All right, but all I'm saying is the idea of taking advantage of the fact that your opponent misplays because they don't have certain information. That kind of combo, that kind of Jamie level jank, which is very is the kind of stuff that Wama really likes. Again, that deck that he set as a prototype, the double Varys' Riddle, the kind of bait your opponent into making mistakes and then taking advantage of them. That deck becomes not dead, but much more difficult to play in the cut. But janky combo decks just have to be consistent now. They have to. You can't rely in the top 16 on your opponent, even if you made it to top 16. Still not quite knowing that you're running this weird heads on spikes for chains. That deck is a lot worse. But Hyper Viper's just as good because Hyper Viper doesn't care if you know its game plan. Mm-hmm. Hyper Viper has a game plan and executes it, right? And same with Wonder Woman or whatever we're calling the Lanny Rose combo deck. Those kind of decks can still flourish in this. But the more force your opponent to misplay decks get worse. And that is a legitimate loss for the game, whether we think that that's an acceptable loss for the game for the things we get out of it, that's one thing. But I do think that is a loss and something that I think we should take seriously. But then we should.
I have a question about that, Roy. Because I don't necessarily what do you think about when you say force your opponent to misplay, right? Does that mean I'm going to attack and have some really obscure challenge math and not do the math for them? And when they screw up, it's I win. Guess what?
I mean, there's some of that stuff, but there's also your opponent thinks that, this is a great opportunity to Valor. I have all of these dupes, and he's already Varys' riddled my counting, and then you're fuck you. I have a second. I have a second Varys' riddle, and you just Valored your whole board away. Eat it. I have 5 gold and made you first. That kind of bait them into a misplay, right? Where they assumed it's okay for me to go down to just my Tywin because. He's already burned his marched. Boom. That kind of stuff.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, do we really think that's what the game should devolve into?
I don't think any of us do. I think
I'm just saying that
we're worried that if we cut that part out of the game, out of the high level tournaments, right? It won't disappear from the game, but it may disappear from Worlds. It may, right? We don't know, but it may. Is that good for the game? Is that good for just the game on a much kind of large macro level, right? Not on is it good for competitiveness? Okay, maybe it's not. But is it good for this game we all kind of gather around together and love and enjoy and tell stories about? I'm not sure it is.
I am.
So here's a question I'd be interested in asking then. And I don't think the answer is yes in this group, but just writ large amongst people who are opposed to this rule. Are there people who are opposed to this rule but in favor of a best 2 out of 3 in the cut or in the finals? And if so, is there a material difference there? I want both. So
I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on the 2 out of 3. I don't think it's necessary. I mean, it's not going to happen at Worlds.
No,
right?
it's not happening at Worlds.
It's not happening at Worlds. It happened in Seattle, and it happens sometimes in cuts in Europe. I don't know which ones they do, which ones they don't.
The Stalic
do 2 out of 3?
Stalic
the final does.
Or maybe just the final. Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's just the final. But also, whatchamacallit did it? The tournament Buzz was that, right? Warburg.
Did it,
yeah. Because.
All right. Yeah.
Oh, and so did the Scottish event did it, from what I remember, from what I understand as well. So, yeah.
Also, remember you guys telling me Brotherhood was bad last week? Eat it.
No one said that.
Congratulations to Wedge. Yeah, no one said that. You and I talked about this. Yeah, Wedge won. Yeah.
Wait, Brotherhood the agenda?
The agenda, yeah.
Wow, it won a thing?
Tyrell Brotherhood.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'll have to go check out the list.
Well, I don't know if Wedge is published.
I've been buried in work for about 3 weeks now, so I played my first Game of Thrones since Highgarden last Sunday, so this is all news to me.
I played 4 or 5 games this weekend.
So yeah, it looks like based on the chat, the 2 of 3 is kind of catching on. So probably started in Europe, and now Nationals did it. Canadian Nationals did it.
Did Canadian Nationals
a handful?
Oh yeah, because I think they gave all the national championships.
Rob just said
option.
He was
Yeah, Rob was the winner, so Rob would know, right? So
Rob won Canadian Nationals?
Yes, we talked about this in the very last episode.
I knew that.
I obviously wasn't listening at that point.
congratulations again, Rob.
Obviously, that change had a huge effect on U.S. nationals, right?
A huge effect, right?
Huge
Seth
effect. But
Seth threw a game, right, to learn his opponent to confirm his opponent's strategy. That's what he said, right? Seth said, like, I threw that first game.
Yeah.
So
I guess that's maybe a case study for why it could be a good thing, because they played 3. Seth did win 2 out of 3, so you could say, okay, well, I mean, empirically, his deck is more consistent, maybe. But I don't know. I think a one-of game most of the time will give you the better player / better deck. So I'm not sure
I don't
the
think
two
that's true at
situations
all.
are the same.
I think
What
on a
game?
purely
Thrones isn't
logistical
it?
I mean,
level,
Thrones at
are you
this
saying
point
every
is-
game is just a coin flip? No, like the better
No.
player / better deck most of the time is going to win a one-of game.
Yeah, like 60%.
If it's just a straight
like
coin flip, then none of this matters. Like none of this matters.
I agree.
No, Glazer's right. 60%.
Yeah, I think once you're both good players in the cut, it's like 60% of the time the better player in deck wins. Like in Swiss, probably otherwise.
Which is
But
why
in the cut-
60% is like an astronomically high win percentage in Magic. Like 60% match wins is a crazy good player.
in most
Yeah.
card games, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So I think that transition us. What makes a good player? So Sandy had an idea that we're going to spend probably the next
Hour.
30 minutes or so talking about. Oh, we can't do an hour. Which is
I posted the
what's-
stuff in the text.
Yeah, I saw. So Sandy, why are we going to talk about this topic, and how does it link to what we were just discussing?
So right, I think that like based on what you consider makes a good player in Thrones, like obviously there's the empirical, they win a lot, great. But what are the factors? Like if we decompose that into like components, like what actually are they doing to win more than other people? If it's just a coin flip, then whatever. The game is somewhat random. And the like obviously, or maybe not obviously, I think that knowing the deck list actually makes shifts the balance of what makes a good player. Like in terms of a type of player that may have a 70% win rate prior to this change may in cut games like just stop winning altogether. We don't know. I think that I don't think it's going to be that drastic, but I think some people will do better and some people will do worse. I personally think I will do way better with this change, assuming I ever make a cut ever again.
Gotta get there.
Because the type of knowledge that comes from playing over and over again is what archetypes are out there, what people are likely to do, they're running a Stark deck, they probably have a Put to the Sword, they may have a Winter is Coming, that space.
They definitely have Winter is Coming.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I would not think that in the moment of the game. But if I look over their event package 2 minutes ago, then I might know. Hey, it's possible they might be on this. But I think there are definitely players who seem to anticipate everything I'm going to do, despite never having played me before, just because they know how decks work. I don't think that, but I don't think that's
how decks work.
Yeah,
Decks, but
That makes much more sense.
keep moving.
So,
right once to get off.
More than that, there's let's say player skill. What factors? You guys are all better players than me. What factors go into determining, for example, what plot you reveal next? What would I think timing of Valar? There are times when it's obvious. But there are times when it's I did not expect a Valar there, and that won you the game or lost you the game. So
yeah,
what are
I
your,
think we
feel
started
like
with
in
the
the
hardest
second
question
edition-
on Aaron's list, which is when do you Valar, which I think is something I still haven't far from mastered.
So I think I know how to use Valor. I don't know how to use fucking anything else in second edition. I hate the opening plot gambits in second edition. They're so fucking rock paper scissorsy, and I just hate them. I just want everyone to open a 901 against me forever, and just let me play whatever I want. They're so rock, it drives me completely crazy. I don't know why people play what they play. Sometimes it makes no fucking sense to their deck. It's just complete fucking nonsense what people open with. It's obnoxious. But Valor isn't that hard. You wait till they have some shit that's not protective and you have a hand and econ advantage, right?
Yeah.
Or at least hand and econ equality.
Yeah, you look for multiple advantages, right? Barring some insane combination of cards that they have hidden, which is not much, right? And there's not a whole lot that can really like, whoa, I can't believe you did that, except for the plot flip, right? Like Varys' riddle can totally screw up your valor, obviously. But you just kind of look for, okay, am I going to come out of this with board position, with card advantage? And is my econ not going to be too hurt by this? Well, then I think it's time to valor, right? If you think you can gain that edge in kind of multiple areas of the game space, right? If it's like, ooh, they've got good characters, it's time to valor. But like, you don't have econ, you've got 4 cards in hand. Like, pump the brakes, son.
Yeah, yeah. I don't.
Get
Yeah, I don't
yourself
think
built up a little bit.
Like, I don't care if you
because-
have 10 cards in hand. If you don't have the econ, you're just gonna sit there twiddling yourself and chuck them to reserve.
But that's also a thing though. Like, this is where I think good players to great players, like a great player might Valar in that situation because they know their opponent losing their board state is enough to put them back in the Stone Age, and they're gonna recover faster. It's more likely that they will have econ before their opponent does. And this is like,
if neither of you have econ, sure.
Unless their opponent already has the econ, right? And
right.
Yeah, but if they have no
like
cards in hand,
when I valor, it's not so much like, can I wreck my opponent's board state? It's more like looking at my hand and saying, like, what does my turn look like next, like on the valor turn? Like, if I am left with 2 characters, like best case scenario, nothing bad happens, and I have 2 characters on the board with no claim, and it depends on what characters those are. Can I defend the military challenge? Like, there's things that have to go into that calculation. And if it doesn't look like a very good situation, you just hold back until you can set yourself up a little better.
One of the ideal valor situations to me is when they're going to march you, right? Like when they've heavily foreshadowed that march, and you're just like, all right, they're only going to have 4 gold and 5 reserve, so my 2 isn't that much less. Like, so much of this game is always comes back to the economic factor. Assuming anything close to even in economy, you know they're going to march you. That's when you want a valor, right? 70% of the time ish.
Yeah, and I think actually one of the other things that's made me better with valor is realizing that, are you willing to not play anything this turn? Like, can you get away with playing nothing or
literally
next to nothing
nothing
this turn?
Yeah.
Right. Literally nothing. Right. Like for me, there's such like a fear of like ever not playing a single card or maybe putting one character down if I'm forced to go first to do something maybe. But just be like, all right, this is a turn I'm going to take off, but it clears enough of my opponent's stuff. It screws up their tempo, messes up their game that I can then recover. So even if it... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Do you have an economy plot after?
Yeah.
And if you know that they're probably only going to be able to play one character because of whatever they did, I will often play something just to die to military so that they don't fucking intrigue me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are all, like, I think Valar is an obvious example of, like, there's a lot of skill involved in evaluating board state. But I think maybe the trick to Valar is evaluating board state. Like, really just, if we get rid of all the characters, who comes out ahead? So what about the other, like, there are all sorts of events, right? And events you can play that are offensive, defensive, whether even including events in your deck. Like, some people will not play a deck without Hand's Judgment and Nightmares. Other people are like, well, maybe 1 Nightmares or 2 Nightmares, but no Hand's Judgments. And like, whatever. What do you guys think is how do you read the meta for that?
Like, Chris, why don't you kick us off, because you've been a little quiet for this part of the episode.
I mean, for me personally, I try and I'm kind of a efficiency kind of guy. So in terms of events, I stick to basically the bare minimum that I can get away with. There's obviously some that are too powerful to ignore in a specific deck, Nightmares, things like that. But in terms of when in the game to use them, I thought that Aaron's point earlier about kind of timing the impact level in a reverse order is important. So you make sure that, if you're going to Nightmare something and it doesn't work because they cancel it, because they brand it, because they do whatever to it, that you're okay with that. So then the next one you're sure is going to get through.
Mm-hmm. Events are about patience, right? Like, more than characters. Probably not more than plots, but more than anything else, because they're one shot as a rule. So it's about figuring out when. It's not figuring out just when you're going to use them. It's figuring out the next 4 moves after that, right? Like, it's figuring out, if I drac this, A, he knows I have 1 less track, but B, then I can do this and that. That should allow me to do this. That should usually allow me to march, right?
Like, well, they're one of the few surprises, right?
Yeah.
After plots, it's one of the few surprises you've got. in your deck. So there's a really fun little game on when to play, when to play, how to get the most out of your events, because you want to get the most. You don't want them to be wasted.
But man, you know what we need back with all this open knowledge? We need shadows. We've had all this open knowledge. We just need shadows, right?
Which card in shadows is that card?
Because even if you know which cards they're running, you don't know which one that is.
I will say, though, one other thing about events, especially some that kind of have not multiple uses, because we don't have any kind of modal events, which is too bad. But Ryan's card is close.
Yeah,
but in terms of like cards like Ryan's card and a few others where they have more uses than that might seem obvious. When I was playing Lanny Rose at Kubla, I won a game because I was able to use a Renly's Ride on defense to lose by less than 5, so he couldn't put my guy to the sword, and then the game would have spiraled from there. So just things like that where you're like, well, this isn't intuitively how this event gets used. Like, I'm wasting the Intimidate, but just when to know when it's necessary to use it as an emergency valve, basically.
So also to not be greedy with your events. Like, this is something like for not to wait for that perfect opportunity to Drac or Nightmares. Like, this has also improved my win record, which is that to be like a little bit more like, okay, is this a good situation for me to Nightmares? Do I have a plus here? Like, will I actually get something? Will it turn the game in my favor? Even this turn, even if it's not the ideal Nightmares, that is why I put this card in my deck. But remember, Intrigue Claim is a thing in this game. There's been so many times where I've been like, I've held back an event, and then it gets pulled for Intrigue Claim, and if I just played the event that round, I would have actually had something. But I'm just saying, like, like you got to find the balance.
Like if that doesn't tilt you, it's not that.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. By actually thinking, by not just looking for the platonic ideal use of X event, I've actually won more games because I've been more willing to actually get events out of my hand versus hold them back for that, like, ooh, look at that Melisandre coming in for that challenge tracker.
But well, you should probably Drac Melisandre.
But you could wait an entire game for that opportunity, and it never comes. Right. That's his point, right? You're waiting for the sweet spot for this Drac when it's like, maybe just get the Chud so your March works a lot better next turn. Like this,
right. Well, that's probably true. It's also notable that like you don't win games because you won a round, and I feel like that's a mistake a lot of players that just roll. Like, they try and win the round, and it's like, aha, I kicked your ass there. I don't really care.
I have 6 power. I have 4 characters.
Like until you hit 15, you hit 15, motherfucker.
Only the 15th power matters.
I'm sure we've all come back from like 14-1 or 14-0, right? Like it's just shit that happens afterwards. But like, don't try and win rounds. Try and win the game.
This is actually another reason. I know, Chris, you don't like this card, but the Words Are Wind. The foiled. Yeah, all you good players hate it. And here, me playing against me, I would hate to see that card because it forces a decision every time. And I know, like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like, what do you want from me?
You didn't just say take the gold, right? You just be like, take it. I want my stuff to happen. Take the gold. Take it.
Yeah, you draw. It says I get a +1 card. That's what it reads.
And all I need is that gold. Oh, is it a card or gold?
It's card. It's card.
You get 2 cards, but that was a card. So it's like, yeah, just since you ran that bad card here, have an extra card. Let's just pretend you drew that other bad card before.
It's technically efficient, right? Technically.
This is what I'm saying. Like, I think that one of the things is like, that card loses you games in the cut, but it might get you to the cut because it increases the decision burden of people. I don't know.
So guys, from now on, don't let it increase your decision burden. If someone plays against you, I want you to immediately go, all right, I'll draw cards.
Draw away.
Draw.
Okay,
just don't think. Just say draw.
Like, congratulations, you just played an event that said draw a card, or you just drew a card. You just did a cool move to draw a card. Good job.
All right. I'll take that every time.
I'm sure there's a situation where that's not true, but like enough of the time.
This is like going first and second too. Like, it's a choice that you make repeatedly, and like most people just blindly say, like, I'll go first, I'll go second. Like, I'm playing Greyjoy, I'm going first. Or like I'm playing Martell, I'm going second. I think most people tend to go second.
I still hate going first. Like, to this day, even though in second edition it's much more of a choice, like, it hurts my first edition bones to go first. Like, it
I've
feels
lost
so wrong.
games early on in second edition because I followed that. I was like, oh, I definitely want to go second because I always want to go second. And then you're just like, I just got rolled. Like if I
What
had
had
gone
just
first,
happened?
if I had gone
Yeah,
first
that
on this
would've been
board,
fine.
oh my god, I would have put so much pressure on him. You're like, Jesus.
That's how John beat me at some tournament game. Like, we were playing, and I was like, I'll go second. He was like, are you what? Why did you say that? I was like, I don't know. It's just what I say.
Because I want to see what you'll
I've
do
definitely-
first.
I definitely did that on camera at Thrones War. It was very bad.
Yeah.
I just intuitively made the choice. It was a March versus a Valor, and I intuitively was like, oh, you can go first. Ah,
There,
Yeah,
goddamn it.
I lost
no
a
one ever
game.
stopped
I
that.
lost a game at Thrones War doing the same thing, or it's like, because I didn't see his scouting, or what's it called, scouting vessel, whatever the fuck it is,
yeah,
like raiding longship, and
Yeah.
then he put the sword in my rub, and I blew the game. I was like, oh, I won this game if I went first.
I really should have gone first there.
Yeah, the whole
But,
rest of the time, Chris listened me rant about how I should have just gone fucking first.
So, like, but a lot of that is just like reps, right? Because I don't sit there and think of every decision in this game. Like, I'm sure I've played over 1,000 games of second edition. Roy's played like 2,000. Sandy does this every fucking weekend, so I'm sure he's played plenty, right? Like,
I played like 50.
okay, so we've played, like, collectively, all of us have played a fucking absurd amount of games, and eventually certain things just become muscle memory, and you have to actively break that when the situation calls from it.
Yeah.
Like, cause if you just say, "What do you want to do?" I want to go second, and I don't even, like, there's no real thought about situation until I, have to.
Yeah, like when your opponent flips Valor, like how quick are you just like, you're first. You're first.
Yep.
You're first.
And then and
but
then it's
sometimes
like,
you can get screwed. You're like, oh,
it's like, I really wish I had March.
that was dumb. I had
thing.
claim. I probably should have gone first. Like,
Yep.
it can matter.
Yeah.
And they had intimidate. That was really dumb. Why did I do that?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
all around ridiculous. But, like, just there, it's muscle memory. It really is.
Right.
It's just like you flip it.
Read the board state.
Yeah.
That's what the chat is saying. Read the board state. It's probably good advice.
Sure, but like even read the board state's not always enough because there's certain just like, does the hand count as the board state? Because that's an awful lot of it.
your
Yeah.
own hand? Yeah.
Then their hand. Like, how many cards do they
How
have?
many
If they have
cards?
2 cards, and like I know I have 2 claim, I'm feeling pretty good about going first.
I think this game is actually like the board state. Like we're not playing Go here. Like you don't have to do some like complex analysis. But to Aaron's point, I think there are subtleties, and I think there are I think cognitive load is a thing, and I know like you guys all seem to minimize the impact of decisions, but like I think the more decisions you make, the more likely you are to fuck up. So to Aaron's point, like getting muscle
I
memory,
played Bloodthirst, motherfucker.
getting
Second edition has no decisions.
getting to the point where most of your decisions are not consciously made and you're not spending effort in thinking about them, but you're like, oh, this board state or this like matches a pattern that I've seen before and I do XYZ in this pattern. And only focusing on like kind of either higher level decisions or focusing on decisions that are truly impactful in the moment, like what card do I bring out of Flea Bottom or like whatever, rather than kind of like, oh, I need to go first or second, I need to go whatever.
Hey,
I think that's
you know what really helps with building that skill? When you play online or you play casually, don't take back at all.
Yep.
Like when that fucks you up, you remember that pain. Like even if it's a practice game, and then you stop making that mistake. When you can take backs, you never learn shit.
I generally do that as well, and even in like when I go to game night kits, like I'll let players who play more casually than me do takebacks and stuff like that. But when I fuck up, I'm like, oh, I did that in the wrong order. They're like, oh, do you want to take it back? They're like, no, because otherwise Roy will not learn, and I will do this at Gen Con.
Of course you will. You already learned. I think that's a fallacy.
But no, I am definitely
Win,
a person who
win.
needs the scars to remember, because I have terrible short-term memory. But anyway, so I think the other question is like sort of challenges. So I think the other phase that sort of builds on Sandy's point about cognitive overload.
Roy really
And-
wants to get off. He's like cutting questions left and right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, left and
Wait,
right.
we can't cut that one though. So you're going a little too fast.
What,
Oh no, I
what do
guess
you
that
wanna
is a
get?
challenges question. I
It's
want
a
to do
challenge.
the next.
I'm combining questions is what I'm doing here,
Yeah,
letting
yeah.
the discussion flow. So like with the challenges phase, that's where you get a lot of decision paralysis, I think, at least at my point. And so sort of like things like what do you leave standing? in the when you go first, right? How do you build the defense when you're going first? It's easy when you're going second. You just defend everything you can and then whack with what you have left. But when you're going first, knowing what you're going to need, playing around what surprises could be, that's a lot of decisions to make. And what to leave standing for dominance, like particularly when you're the first player, is like kind of a nightmare situation. So what do we think about the sort of questions that arise and the decision points that arise in the challenges phase? See?
You can play the wall or builders and just ignore your challenges phase. Just
yes. My favorite phrase in Thrones: past challenges.
Take the most complicated phase and just be like, this is going to be easy.
Although, to be fair,
I finally called it a phrase, not a word. Let's all be proud.
The wall is like, just don't forget your bird triggers, all right? Just don't forget your birds and you'll be all right.
Well, I mean, to be fair, builders versus builders or builders versus other Night's Watch, you do have to do challenges. And I'm sure Wama's in the chat. He's going to be like, builders, you do so many challenges. But no. So, see, Aaron was all like, we have to have this question. And he's not even like,
I'm talking in the chat.
Of course he is. So I think the other one is like, and I definitely run into this myself, which is like challenges math can sometimes, particularly for those of us who are do not have the best mental math, as we say in school, can sometimes get a little bit like, okay, is it 13? Is it 15? If I go here, is he going to be this? And then I'm like, oh God, this is why. Now I understand why they put me in remedial math in high school.
I mean, I count out loud. Like, if you watch me play against a deck that requires, I'll be like 4, 5, 6, 7.
I will too. I've done it.
And then check what the opponent goes. Is that
like,
right?
The amount of stuff that's swimming around in your head gets crazy sometimes, and you just need to like separate the strands of thought and be like, strength. Let's count that.
Wait, do any of you ever lie to opponents when they ask? Because I always answer, honestly. Like
I don't answer, but I don't lie.
Oh, I always answer.
I think literally,
people will be like, "So you have a 14?" I'll be like, "No, I have 16.
Like,
it's right there."
The cards say, or that.
Here's the thing, though: you cannot lie in the rules. Like, if they ask you, like, is your character 5 strength? You'd be like, yes, but it's actually 7. Like, that's against the rules. You don't have to answer if it's clearly marked on the board slate and you said, I trigger this to raise his strength. Yeah. You can be like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to tell you to do that
if it's
yourself.
Against the rules. No one's talking about rules.
No, but I'm saying, like, you can't lie about it. Like, I don't want to get it out at all. You cannot lie.
Okay, Bree.
I would give someone a warning.
Shut up. We hear you. Get over it. You're the one who wants to get off, and you're like, I'm going to talk about
I know, but it's an important thing for
20 minutes. All right. So I always answer. Like, I just tell you exactly what I have on the board. If it's free information. Chris apparently doesn't. The others?
I do.
I do.
I generally don't know. So
yeah, I'll usually say it's this, and then I'll go, well, let me make sure. And then I'll count just to make sure. Because I want to say it. I don't want to be someone who withholds it, but I don't want to say the wrong thing. So I'll it'll get me like working overtime, which maybe isn't a good thing, but
hey, so
like
when
in
do you
tournament, I would attack with like 5 characters and be like, somebody would ask me like, what is that? Like, I don't know, probably like 25.
I'll say that. Like,
it's enough to get my foot to the sword of. I'm just overcommitting.
When I'm the attacker,
don't read too much into it.
When I'm the attacker, and I particularly like if I don't have like a range trigger or something, I'll just be like, I attack for this. I just kneel a character. Like, you can do the math if you want to defend. You can let me go unopposed or jump block it if you prefer. But I'm not doing the math. I'm like, I think I can win if I attack.
Seriously? I always do the math.
No, I'm just joking. Well, I mean, I will do that if I know I'm going to win the challenge. Be like,
so my favorite thing in Thrones, probably, like if yours is past challenges, mine is the challenge with the one power reducer Chud first. Like, I don't care. Like, if I'm first player,
cheeky
I'm just like power, cheeky, and then I just shrug, and they go, "Oh, fuck you! Fuck you!" Oh. And like, this is the like contortions that they're doing to figure out like if they can still attack, if they defend with this, what am I gonna do next? Because all I've wasted is this one tiny thing. Is fucking hilarious.
That's actually like 20% of the reason I run Plaza of Punishment is so I can defend that challenge and kill your fucking virus right there. Like,
yes, if you're running Plaza of Punishment, I'm probably doing something else. Like,
well, I don't know. If you're on autopilot, you're just like
no. I like board. Like, I can handle burn. I live in New York.
So I think actually,
like, I know how burn plays.
Related to this, I think, is like decision points large versus small boards. Do you think that actually increases it, or do you think that decreases it? Because I actually sometimes think really large boards decreases the amount of decisions you have to make. Sometimes
there's no decisions on large boards. It's just duh. I turn shit sideways. How much? Like, there's a few math decisions, right? Like,
Yeah.
it helps if you're not totally incompetent at math. But what the fucking decisions? Duh.
It reduces it to where you're just like, okay, what do I really need to win here? What can I realistically win? Let me. You kind of lower your expectations for that challenge phase when it's like 8 characters against 9 characters. You're like, all right, well, I'm probably not going to sneak anything really powerful through here. Like, how can I come out ahead of this clusterfuck?
I think that's also
the idea.
But that's also that's one of those things where if your opponent is either, again, cognitively exhausted or lazy or like not paying attention, they can really
if they're lazy, you.
Yeah, for me, I have fucked that up.
They are
I'm
lazy.
people,
Yeah.
and I'll have 9, and I'll be like, okay, I'll just defend with this, and oh shit, now you get a free power challenge through because I don't know what I'm doing.
Here's a tip for the listeners. On those huge boards, always make them go first if you can. Because if that person makes one little mistake, whether it's, okay, I'll just defend with everybody on your big challenge and get like 6 renown, or they just chump a few things and then you go with everybody on one big power, like you can usually come out ahead if you make them make the mistakes first.
Depends how close to the end of the game it is.
Yeah.
Early, that's true. Late, probably not, because by then it's just like, I've got 6 renown, guys. You didn't count right. Fuck you.
I win.
Scott beat me that way once. Like, the only time we played in a tournament. He had I thought I had 1 more power to spare, even if he got his crossing trigger, and he thought so too. And then Patrick Haynes came up and recounted and was like, "No, that's 15." I was like, "I just lost the game like an idiot."
To be fair, Patrick also lost a game to it like an idiot to me. That
it was the same game. It was the same round. It wasn't even a different round.
He was very upset because he didn't read the knight's plot and make it immune to events. He looked so happy when I put my Knight of Flowers into that challenge. He's like, I'm track. I'm like, no, Patrick, no track.
Can't do it, buddy.
He owned me in the cut though, so.
I mean, I think Whammo calls this discussion boring, but like basically, don't do stupid shit. Is that the takeaway from this? What makes a good player? Like, don't do stupid shit.
A lot of it's not making mistakes.
Like, I think this is actually like a very valid point to make, which is it's not like good players aren't the ones making these like hero calls and like fancy, whatever plays. It's just like consistently not making mistakes. Like, don't misread the board. Don't try to pull one over on your opponent. Like, just do solid plays.
Excellent transition to our last question in this segment.
Hang on, because not done. The hero calls are your plots. Because if you watch Thomas play, like fucking the plot, or like when Alvaro when he was active, you'd be like, why the fuck did he play that plot? That's brilliant. Like he had 7 options. How did he do one I forgot he had?
It's no coincidence that his champ card is like the master of that that style of play.
But like plots are where if you're good enough, like I think plots are what separate the good players from the great players. Like good players don't make mistakes in their draw deck, and great players like plot you and you're like, oh fuck you. Because Corey's fucking ridiculous with plots too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dan's ridiculous with plots.
Dan's obnoxious with plots.
Well,
I fucking hate Dan.
Even in draft, as I learned the other day. So the last sort of question here, I think, which is a good one to go out on, because I think Wama will be interested in this, because it's something Wama loves to do. Baiting your opponent. When is this when is it sort of an important decision? What role does baiting your opponent really, I think, play in a game?
When they're bad.
To be clear, I don't think Wama was saying our discussion was boring. He's saying the point about not making mistakes was not like a real engaging one because it's kind of obvious. So,
Wama, you tell us what you mean. Don't leave, Chris.
Anyway,
say the question again. Repeat.
It's possible Wama thinks it's boring.
Stayed
up late. Feel bad.
He stayed up late for this. I'm so sorry.
We know nothing about the challenge phase. I really had I was looking forward to that. Roy, you suck.
Baiting opponents.
Aaron, you had all the opportunity to say
don't
things.
Do it.
We just finished one, and you're like, by the way, we're on to baiting opponents.
I'm sorry, I am trying to get done by 11:30. I'm sorry.
Well, too bad. So I think what you defend when you're second and what you leave standing when you're first are important questions, and I don't think they're just the board state. Like there's specific times. Like, what do you defend when you're the second player, and what is your goal in defending?
My goal in defending is to counterattack. I don't know. I'm bad at this game, but I think like I want to keep when I choose what challenges to defend, my goal is almost always to reduce the power differential and board state differential at the beginning of my turn. So then if I go into it and we are at the same state or similar state, or I have an advantage compared to when the start of the turn, then I feel like, okay, I did okay. But if they have if they've killed a bunch of characters and I don't have any way to counterattack, or if like they've gained a bunch of power and I don't have any way to counterattack, then I know that I'm behind and I probably should have done something differently. Sometimes you just see you see the train coming, you can't do anything about it. But like a lot of times it's really like even subtle differences, like who do I use to defend with, and what do I lose? Like, is it worth winning this challenge and expending some resources, or do I lose this challenge because then I can win on the counterattack? And I try to do that, but I don't. I mean, sometimes I get lazy.
It depends on what point of the game it is, too.
Yeah. Follow-up question for Sandy is, in general, what challenge do you most want to win? In general, I know if you only have 2 characters and you don't want to get marched, then military suddenly starts to matter an awful lot more. But in general, on like an average board state, which challenge do you most want to win on defense?
So the last 3 months, I've been playing Targ decks, and so I want to win that intrigue on defense because my cards are so valuable, and they will let me win 2 other challenges. But in general, I don't know that there's an easy answer.
I would say I'm similar to Sandy in that it's probably not logical, but the fear of losing my hand is great in all games. Like I just hate it. Like you could kill a pretty good character from the board, and I'd be like, "Them's the breaks." Like that's Game of Thrones. But if I'm I got those 5 cards in hand, like I've got a plan for every one of those cards, or else I didn't build a very good deck, right? I've got a plan. Like I want to use this one this turn. I want to use this one in dominance. I'm hoping to use this one like next marshalling. Like I'm planning my turn out, and like I don't want you touching that. Like get away. And I admit to just probably defending more intrigue challenges than I should, just because I want to preserve whatever plan I've lined up in my head, even though it's not always optimal. Like that, like I would even recognize that as my biggest weakness. I freaking hate losing intrigue challenges, and I avoid it at all costs. Power, I don't care until they get to 15. Win all the power challenges.
Have fun.
Power is a resource.
Take power. Take power.
I mean, here I agree with Chris. I think this is a good middling player perspective. I think early on, intrigue challenges and towards the mid game, intrigue challenges are very important, and those are the ones I generally tend to defend the most. But somewhere around the middle of the game, where you sense the momentum of the game of one player moving towards their they're starting that push towards the victory condition, at that point the power challenge I think becomes the most important in both offense and defense. So usually like around like plot 3, unless you're playing against a rush player. Like I don't know, the games I've been playing, it's usually plot 3.
I think it's more like plot 5-ish that I stopped caring.
I mean, unless you're playing against hyper stall like plots, I think plot 3, people start making those moves to get to that 10 power, that 11 power that can let them close, right? And I think at that point, knowing like power really becomes a resource. I think at that point, and you really have to think about when you can expend a power by losing that challenge, so that you can push through and get power from them. Like I think that's where it becomes the most. But early on in the middle of the game, before that moment of where it becomes the power total becomes the resource, the moment, intrigue, I agree with Sid, is the most important and the one that I try to defend most often.
All right, so I'll take all of that one.
Said I can't disagree with any of that.
I'll take all of that one step further. In defending, I generally you're gonna hit me with a bunch of win by 5 effects almost always in our games. I just don't care enough to unless it's really important. Unless it's really important, I'm probably just like, well, if you fucking have it, win, but you overcommitted to the point where whatever. So I'm almost always gonna defend military and power with whatever the weakest thing I can is, and intrigue I'm almost always gonna over defend. I mean, especially with reigns in existence, but even without reigns, I just don't want to lose intrigue if possible.
Yes. Stay out of my hand, man. Stay out of there.
That's the hand.
That's my privates.
With resets in the game, finally, the hand is what wins you the game as much as the board, if not more.
Well, I mean, if you're running Valor, right? Characters are like, well, I was going to kill them for Valor and 2 plots anyways. You can have them. Claim, boom. Power, you don't care about. It's intrigue, I feel like, from plot 1 all the way to the end of the game, unless it's locked up. Those cards are important. I need them. I need those cards.
All right. any more challenge decision points that we want to talk about before we move into?
Yeah.
Okay.
Blazer.
When do you not defend at all? Like beyond just early. When do you want to not defend at all, and why? Whether you're first or second. Like,
When
do
your
you,
opponent
do,
has
do you guys
valor.
do you guys really go first? How often do you guys go first and just kneel out your whole fucking board? Like, when do you just not give a shit about defending? And then we can stop, Roy, just to make you happy. Sorry.
Playing Rush.
Yeah. Or if you're just gonna win.
Is defending against Rush, like,
Defending
always that
as
important?
Rush.
Defending as
Depends
Rush.
on the rush.
Yeah,
You have
exactly.
a Greyjoy rush with Great Kraken and stuff.
You better defend.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think that's actually in many ways, actually thinking about it now, that maybe one of the hardest decision points. One I think I sometimes master on the day, but then I go to the next tournament and I actually haven't mastered it.
You
Or it's-
unmaster it.
I
You
unmaster
play
it.
Night's Watch, you're supposed to defend everything.
Yeah, I know. I like that. It's really definitely gets rid of decision paralysis. But it's definitely, I think, hard. I think you should try to oppose things. I think you should try to oppose every challenge, right? Like, I mean,
Certainly not. No.
really? Like if you can
No.
without it, you
I don't give a
should.
shit. No.
You don't
No,
give a
I don't
shit?
care. Especially
I
a
just
lot of
don't
times I
care.
actively want to let them have some power. Like,
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I agree with that, but I don't know. I think I don't know.
If you've got an embarrassment of board state advantage and you're just like, I will defend everything and then I can still attack.
Sure.
I mean, sure, maybe in those real fringe cases, but
Yeah, if you're
I don't-
winning the 3 challenges on offense and dominance, after that, defend whatever you want. I don't care. Like,
Yeah,
like,
really.
if
Like, I
you've
just
got
don't care.
guys
I
with
don't-
renown, you just want to win challenges with them. You don't care what. It doesn't matter, right? Defense, I mean, offense is the bonus, but if your opponent kind of chuds with somebody and you're like, I'm not sure if I can win with this character on offense the way they're playing, but I can get an easy defensive, like, then you're going to do it, right? You're going to take that power when you can, if the
but,
offense doesn't look great.
But like, I will often just ignore challenges, like especially the first 2. The third, maybe I'm more likely to like throw a little more at, because by then I know what the board state's going to be for Dom, right? But like, for those first 2, I very often just kind of shrug and say, you can just have them. Like, I don't give a shit. Have fun. Enjoy your couple power. Like, your 4 power at the end of turn 2 means literally nothing to me, unless you can get 13. That's math, right? No, that's bad math. Unless you can get 11 the next round. I just don't care. Like, just take it. I'd rather have the extra shit for safety, because you might have some weird trick.
That attitude was why my Tyrell Crossing deck won, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. You can have the 4 power. Like, all right, I'll just take 11 the next turn.
Yeah, I have the least of everything practice playing against Rush for very obvious reasons.
Yeah, I just
It
I
didn't
just feel
exist.
like recently I've been following Aaron's advice a lot more recently, and I feel like I've been
oh,
giving
no
up.
wonder you're losing.
I know. I
He's
feel
doing
like
better
I've been,
than ever, motherfucker.
yeah, but I'm actually thinking some of my losses, though,
I'll be back.
thinking
You guys
about them,
continue.
could be because of that. I think sometimes it's I think giving away spare power in a stall meta where power can kind of, like, you'd be surprised like how fast some of these stall decks can go when they get their combo going, even if you have a power advantage. Like, giving away a little bit more power than you thought, that like 2 or 3 power you gave away early on
Yeah.
can come back and bite you in the ass.
Yeah,
which
against
I've been
Chamber
noticing
and
that
Wall,
recently.
sure. Against Chamber and Wall, sure. I'm talking about games where you both actually play the game, though.
That's true. But I've been playing against a lot of Chamber, so in
Ugh.
recent years. So,
That shit. We need that restricted list.
all right.
Play
Any
better
more
cards.
challenges stuff? Because I got animals I gotta walk and other stuff. And I do want to actually
That's
talk.
rude to talk about Allie like that.
She is asleep, so that's not what I'm talking about. But baiting opponents, like, I actually think this is going to lead to probably it's a good discussion to go out on. When, like Wama said earlier, that that's in the chat, that it was his favorite thing in the game and how the game should be played, but also leads to 90% of his losses. So when is baiting your opponent into making a mistake, or playing decks that are primarily based around baiting your opponent, or like when is it good to bluff in many ways as well? Like, when is it good to bluff?
I know what the first edition answer was. The first edition was in Swiss when you didn't know your opponent. Because if they were good, we knew who they were. So if you didn't know your opponent in Swiss, you were just like, I'm just going to do whatever the fuck I want. They're going to fall for every trick. I don't know if
Jeez.
Answers in second edition. I don't know anybody. So I'd probably just try and go the DC efficiency route and not.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not especially. I mean, we needed to get somebody like Bruno or someone on there here for this subject because I'm definitely more of a technical player and like an ABC kind of guy. I mean, I fancy myself decent, but not in terms of head games or anything like that.
I'm
I,
fucking terrible at it.
I fall victim to being baited constantly.
Yes, you do. So does Roy.
Easy mark, Sandy. The easy mark.
I will say that when I'm playing my Targ deck, like I do feel like with like I can, if I hold off an extra turn on the Valar, or I play a Blood of the Dragon instead of the Valar, like, and I bait them into playing, their whatever. I don't know. I think in general, it's very difficult to do at a level where people aren't shitty, and there aren't like second edition's easy enough that most people aren't shitty. Like they're not going to fall for your stupid tricks.
There aren't that many stupid tricks. How many real tricks are there?
I think.
Well, so I will say I've won more than one game due to an opponent either thinking I was going to play a Valar and preemptively playing their own Valar to double Valar, or to not thinking I had a Varys' riddle and like playing a Valar into my riddle. Like a couple of times, like stuff like that has happened. But short of that plot game, I don't.
Like in deck, it's just like.
Yeah.
Like, what are your real surprises?
I think
now you can start baiting hands judgments if you know they run them.
Yeah.
I definitely agree it's most common in the plot deck. And I think right now, at least for me, baiting your opponent into Valorine early, I think, is the main play that I see people make. It's like trying to get that reset, particularly if you're not trying to offensively reset, you're using your like reset to even the board. Like, so if you're basically not playing Greyjoy. Or Tyrell with all the saves, like getting your opponent to do a turn 2 Valor by maybe playing an extra character on the first turn and that's unduped. But
it
like
just says my opponent is bad, right? Like that's cool.
Yeah, but it's not always that your opponent's bad. It's like you can put them in a situation where they get decision paralysis themselves. Like I could Valor here. No, okay. Let's say it's let's extend it to turn 4. Let's say it's turn 4, and the board state they have a slight advantage. You have a few characters that are vulnerable. They're good characters, like a Tyrion, and they could Valor here, but they're like, oh wait, if I wait one more turn, and if you put them in a situation where they get that decision paralysis, but hey, Valor here, like I have a great way to refill. Or I'll be great. Like, or if you don't Valor, I'll also be great because my hand is awesome. So like being able to like put them in a position
is
where
that baiting,
they
or
lose,
is that
lose.
like I win either way. That's not baiting them. Like if I win either way, it's not baiting them.
If they Valor,
like you set yourself up.
If they Valor, you win, and if they don't Valor, you win.
Well, but I mean, Aaron's basically. But here's the thing: Aaron's basically saying you can only bait bad players, and I don't entirely agree. I think you can bait
rushy players.
I'll give you an example of how I was baited. This was on stream at Varberg, actually. It was versus Pear. And
watching that game.
That game was, but like turn 1, I set up a flea bottom and like some other location, some bullshit. He sets up a Pyromancer's Apprentice by itself. And I'm like, I've got the march. Like I can play the march right now. I'm like, or I haven't maybe I'll just take the hit, and because he may not get a power right away, like I don't know what's he gonna do. So I play the marched. I march as Pyromancer's Apprentice, and like turns out that was just the wrong thing. Like I needed to flood the board because I needed to prevent him from winning dominance. I drew into a duped flea bottom anyway. Like that was just a bad call. But like I was so afraid of that. I mean, I don't think he was actually going to use the Pyromancer's Apprentice. I could be wrong, but like
he would have. Yeah, he would have taken your flea bottom just on.
But he didn't have a power. Like I could have marched the next turn, like he doesn't have that many creatures in that deck. But like it's forcing me to use, and this was after I switched from the second march to a Varys' Riddle, so like I felt a little salty about that. But the point is like you make them use a resource in what is a suboptimal way, but they think is an optimal way, and I think like getting them to misevaluate board state in that way is like much harder in second edition than it was in first because there's so much more open information. It's
definitely tougher to bait people on board. I agree.
Yeah.
And that also goes back to Aaron's point about there being such a limited suite of tricks right now.
Yeah, it's just that, like, sure, with plots, what are you doing to bait people in the draw deck, really?
Widow's Wail.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
some,
a Widow's
there's some
Wail,
jumper
occasional-
ambush
occasional- oh, yeah,
stuff you can
occasional
kind of
stuff.
do.
Most of that
Also-
shit's not really T1 anymore, though.
I'll see people
Not a
like
lot of
nightmaresing something like, and I'll cancel it, and it was really so that they can play their like tiers or whatever real
Yeah.
event they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's just, like, yeah.
That's kidding.
Well,
Because
but
if
I
I
mean-
don't play the Hands Judgment, you know,
Yeah,
that
I mean, yeah,
You can
like
you can kind of
Nightmaresing
paint
to Robert.
a what's it called trigger? You know, Stark location, Winterfell, right?
Winterfell,
That
yeah.
shuts off trigger. You can kind of bait that one a little bit, I think, because
but, like,
once I love it when my opponent plays that, because then I know they're just thinking every challenge like, what can he hit me with this challenge? What can he hit me with this challenge? And they're hitting those decision points, and eventually they're going to make a mistake. Like, no way anyone's 100% right every time they use that card. And so maybe that way you can kind of bait
yeah,
it.
but you're not even, like, I don't know. When I play that Winterfell, I'm not playing for 100% right. I'm playing the odds, right? Like, your goal isn't
Stop
to,
the
your
biggest
goal,
things that'll crush you.
right? Well, your goal is process. Your goal is to make sure that your process is the right thing. Like, sometimes the results aren't going to follow the process, right? Sometimes the odds aren't going to play out in your favor, but they will more often than not.
May the odds ever be in your favor.
Ever.
Yeah.
Is that the final word? Oh God.
No, that's not the
Really?
right.
Why are
Do we have any further sort of thoughts about this book? Because I am going to start wrapping up because I have many things I have to do.
What do you have to do? Tell us all about them, Roy.
I will spare you the intricacies of my personal life at the moment, Aaron. But I will gladly tell you in person or via text if you would like to know.
I want it on air.
So any sort of final wrap-up thoughts about this sort of decision-making process stuff? I hope people got a lot of it. This was actually a much more white booky episode for us than normal.
We talked about
So-
real
Last
stuff?
week was too. If you make me do planning, we end up with the white book style episodes.
why do we let people plan these episodes? Why aren't we just getting drunk together and talking shit about each other? Like that's
because it's a Tuesday. We needed a good Thursday / Friday for that to
There's
really go
different.
down.
It really is different depending on the day, right?
I do.
Like,
Okay,
how-
wait,
how-
it's different.
This will make
Weekend
Sandy
episodes
happy.
are
This will make
fucking
Sandy happy because I want to force him to agree. I was going to ask him about this via Facebook Messenger, but no. So Sandy, as you probably know, because you don't listen to the show, so actually you don't know, we're doing a live episode of Second Sons at Worlds at our after party. So
Yeah.
will you do shots for plots with any random comer live on Second Sons?
we have to have a contest or something because I cannot do more than one game of
All right,
shots
we'll
with
do a
Pop.
contest. All right, we'll do a contest then. We will
like
do a
that idea.
contest to play Sandy live with. We'll even do a commentary with Sid and I over a game of shots for plots
Gosh,
at
this
Worlds.
sounds
This year.
great. I can't wait.
And
All
I
right.
can confirm James Speck is not going, Sandy, so you can kind of unclench, take a breath,
Right.
and feel
The
confident
one,
that you
the
have
one
maybe a
person who's
shot.
ever defeated you at Shots for Plots will not
Yeah.
be there.
50 people have beaten
that's
Sandy at Shots for Plots. Sandy's
No, I
good
think
at
it's
Shots for
only
Plots.
Joe Mirando and James Speck, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean James Speck is the only person.
Someone beat you when we were in London. I don't know who because I was still playing.
I got kicked out of the store.
Yeah, because you lost at Shots
That
for
counts.
Plots and we're a
Yeah,
disaster.
part of it is
Alright.
keeping
So-
your cool.
So
part of
that's sort of end of the episode announcement number 1, which is that will be to be announced. Sid and I will come up with something, a contest to play Sandy for our live episode. But just to remind you that we do have an episode. I will in the next couple of days be putting up the event on our Facebook page about this. So we'll also have
That
probably
show
random
censors, guys.
interviews.
Spoiler.
It's at Joe Censors, but like the time, and there'll probably be live interviews with whoever
Yeah.
shows up. We'll have a whole wonderful thing going on, including the shots for plots.
Will I be able to get autographs from the other cast members?
Yeah. Well, are you going to IO Worlds, Chris?
That's why I'm asking.
Oh, is it going to be during IO Worlds time?
No, it'll be Thursday night. No, it's gonna be
Thursday
Oh,
Thursday
okay,
night.
great. Yeah,
Yeah, censors, yeah.
Perfect.
So, yes. So we'll have a whole bunch of other swag and other stuff for coming. So it'll be great. So, let's see. Any other announcements? You should register for Red Saturday. That's a big thing you should do to make it easier for me to make planning.
Hey, Roy,
Uh,
register me.
Yes.
Also, yeah,
I'm registered.
I'll say this on the cast. because last time I said it in the group and like did not get like I had one person take me up on the offer. But if your problem with coming to Red Saturday is that you do not have a place to stay, we can definitely take care of that for you.
I probably need a place to stay.
You can stay at my apartment, but I'm saying we can probably get a hotel room for people.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because I'm totally not allowed
Sandy
to come home
B&B.
after Thrones tournaments.
I'll give a quick, way too early Kubla shout out, but only because it matters. Like Kubla is 7 months away, and after Worlds there'll be more like real announcements. But right now you can lock in like the cheapest hotel rate at Kubla.
That hotel rate is insane.
Yeah, and those go faster than anything.
What's the date again?
I was looking
Actually,
at
I should get those. I should.
It's
cash in my
Memorial
points.
Day weekend. The tournament will be that Saturday. But right now you can get the cheapest hotel rate, and I don't know how long that's going to last. Hotels go first, like months and months in advance. So if you know you're going to go, jump on the hotel. If you do 3 nights in a row, you get a big discount. And most people do like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So
I'm doing
Hey,
this Saturday.
Why do we
slink out Monday night or Monday morning?
when do we find out our kings?
for
After
Thrones War?
Stalik.
After Stalik,
right?
at least I'm sure.
Yeah, but I mean the draft. It's gonna go quick, right? Because I mean,
It's February.
Stalik,
Yeah, it's got to.
yeah, Stalik. It had to be in
Draft was
January.
January.
In January.
But I think Kings were known. I forget. Chris, do you remember when Kings
I
were
don't recall
released?
exactly. It's not that
was-
much ahead of the draft. It was probably like a month, maybe.
Yeah.
But
I would
that's a
say
big
before
honor.
the new year is a good bet for knowing the
All right.
Kings.
So again, keep in mind Red Saturday, which is sooner. Get in touch with me or Sandy if you need a place to stay. If that is the only thing holding you back, we will make it work for you. I've got some big announcements about prizes, et cetera, coming through the next few weeks. Come to our after party for the Second Sons. Chris, are you
What
going to
about the
Worlds,
Red
or are
Saturday
you
count?
just going to Iowa?
What about the Red Saturday counterparty?
If I go to anything, I'm going to both.
You're going
It's
to
like
both.
not 100% that I'm going to anything, but if I
So-
go, I'm definitely doing both.
This is what he says about every tournament. He'll be there.
Okay.
So,
So-
Europeans are coming to
I'm
Worlds.
definitely not going to Red Saturday. I'll tell you that. So
Why not?
because I'll still be in Europe
He's still going to be in
I
Europe
guess that makes
next
sense.
year, right? Next year, Chris, right?
next year, though. Yeah, for sure.
Am I the only one going to Red Saturday and Stalik?
Because you're not doing the great Southern California vacation.
Brad, Iyer, and the Thompsons might be doing both, I believe.
They are
Oh,
doing,
Brad is. That's right. If the Thompsons,
and the Thompsons as
Right.
well.
yeah.
Chris and Jess have talked to me. They've reached out. They're coming to Red Saturday as well. So,
Okay.
so
You gotta
let's
get
see.
Luke.
Boom, boom, boom. Oh, Kubla. So get ready for Kubla. Get excited for Thrones
When
War.
the hell is Kubla?
And
Memorial Day
Memorial
weekend,
Day
which
weekend.
I know it's like 7 months away, but,
Yeah.
but hotels,
Like-
get your hotel.
I already have a
Uh,
hotel room, Aaron. You can stay with me.
There you go.
So
Wait, for
last but
Kubla?
not least, we have
I wasn't
one
planning on
more
going to Kubla.
episode that
I
we're
could
going
do
to be
that.
doing. Hold on, guys.
I want to go to war, dude. We gotta go to war. You're
We are
taking me
going
to
to
war,
war.
please.
You already confirmed you were going to war last episode, right?
I'm
Just-
definitely going to
Just
war.
come
I
to
just
Kubla
need to,
too, because
I just need to beg my friends.
So last
them
but
what?
not least, our next episode
Get me
will
there.
be the week of the 23rd through the 27th.
Okay.
Probably again on the 24th. Yes, probably on the 24th of that week. We'll see. Tuesdays seem to work for most of us in our scheduling, but we'll see how it goes. There will not be an episode on Halloween because Sid will be traveling. I cannot
Oh.
be doing any Thrones
I'll be
related
traveling
stuff
the next day, but
up
still.
before like between sort of no Thrones that week except
I mean, that'll
until-
be the first is day one, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, first
Yeah.
is
Day 1A is
day
the
one.
first.
So yeah,
Wait, do you guys know which day you are?
I'm day 2
Yeah,
or 1B
Oh.
or whatever it is.
1B. Yeah, 1B. We're all
Why wouldn't
hoping
it
for
just be
day
one-
2,
Why wouldn't it
which is
just be one
actually day 3, but they call it day 2.
That's whatever.
All right,
Trust-
tuning in, Buzz, cut us out, please, so I can get on with my life.